Hey everybody, welcome to Drive-Thru Review 267. Today we're going to talk about Rogue Agent, and to sum it up quickly, this is basically Blade Runner the game. So if you've watched the movie Blade Runner, you should be able to get right into this. Now it's not quite exactly like that, but it's kind of set in a futuristic sort of cyberpunk idea, and there are two modes in the game. Basically you're kind of like cops going around the city arresting criminals, maybe defusing bombs, which is really awesome by the way. Or you can play another mode, which is my preferred mode, but I'll talk more about that later. And you can have sort of like rogue agents, if you will, sort of like Cylons in a Battlestar Galactica idea. Now it's not co-op at all, it's all just strictly competitive. But the ways that you win, based on the mode that you're playing, is going to vary. So let's just jump into how the game works, and I'll come back and tell you more what I think. Okay, here I've got the board and everything set up for 4 players. Now there's a few different things going on here. First we have the main board here, so let's zoom in there. You're always going to have the headquarters there in the middle, and then you can see here we have these numbers. We've got 1, 3, 2, 4, 5, and then here 6. And so there's 1 through 6, and these are always going to be in this configuration. So if we move over just slightly, you'll see headquarters always in the middle, and then you'll have these different precincts here all adjacent to the headquarters orthogonally, and then these 2 little tail ends there. So those are randomly put out, and then the remaining spots here are going to be these different things like a gun depot, the hospital, all that stuff. So the board's always going to look in the same shape, but the areas are going to be randomized. You're going to take and roll a die here. You're going to put your police squad guy here. This is this little red figure. Doesn't belong to a player. And then each player is going to have a little agent in their color there. These cool little plastic figures there. They're going to go here in the headquarters to start the game. Over here we have this little mini board here, and this is a round tracker. So you use this guy here to count rounds, and you can see the game's either going to end at round 6 or round 8. So if you play without traders, so to speak, you'll play 6 rounds. If you're playing a 2-player game, you never play with traders. If you play with 3 and 4, you can optionally add in traders. I would recommend it. And then you're going to play till the 8th round. This is also a little sort of a turn track. It shows you the different phases to go through quickly. And then it also has your score track token. So if you're the purple player, you may end the game with 3 points, and the yellow player may have 4, something like that. And then these are going to basically be influence points that you get during the game. There's a couple of ways to get some points after the game, but whoever has the most influence wins. So you can see here are the phases of the game. Simply the first phase is to move the little red token up 1, and then you're going to seed the board here, basically draw out of the data stream here, which is this bag, and draw tokens and put some out. And then you have the action phase here. Players will each get 1 action phase. They can do multiple actions. Then you have sort of a cleanup and city phase, or the criminals and villains and things are going to move. So you can see here you've got the gray tokens, those are villains, green assassins, and then this is the red police squad, and then the blue bombs, and then you pass the data stream to the next player. So let's take a look at some more stuff, and then I'll go into how a turn works. So here we have 1 player board. You can see this is for the purple player. Every board is going to start out the same. You have 3 resources here: fuel, bullets, and evidence. And those are all going to start here in the center on these little white dots there. And then you have 3 upgrades, basically the car, the gun, and then these are sunglasses. We're trying to figure out why there's sunglasses, but these will give you some different abilities. So during the game you're going to be able to acquire more resources and spend fuel to move, and bullets to kind of deflect damage or roll more dice. And then these upgrades are always going to go up to here. And then once you get to the right of one of those things, basically this lets you move an extra space. Normally you can move 2 squares, you can move 3 if you have that, and then if you have it all the way to the right, you'll also get an influence point as well as unlock this ability, which will protect you from thug damage. These 2, once you get to the right of there, they'll give you 2 green dice to roll. This bottom one here is interesting. Sometimes you'll buy things straight up from a tile, so you can see you can spend $2 to get a gun upgrade there. Sometimes you're just going to roll dice. This track here will help you with that. Sometimes you may roll damage. This will help block damage when you roll dice to search, and this one will let you do a little re-roll. So that sunglass one at the bottom is kind of a nebulous helper thing. You also have your life here. If you go down to the bottom, you're going to end up going to the hospital, and then your life will reset up to the heart, as well as some other things. I'll talk about dying here in a second. You're also going to have some money, some starting money. These are worth 1, those red ones are worth 5, and everybody has a certain number of informants here that you're going to try and put out on the board. Some of these little circles there will be out on the board here. So these are worth 1 point, at the end of the game if they're still out there, and they feasibly could get killed off pretty easily. To also help you do some things, normally sometimes you can do some things only if your piece is in the area, but if you have an informant, then sometimes you can also do an action there where you have an informant as well. These are some investigation tokens. I'll talk about those in just a minute, but that's what each player is going to get. They get a little bit of money to start the game, the player board, some informants, and then you're ready to go. So the first thing you do every turn is the start player is going to take the Daystream, and depending on the number of players, they're going to draw 2 or 3 of these tokens out of the game. Now there's basically 3 types of tokens you can draw, and here you can see the tokens. First we have the bomb. These are in blue, and there's 4 of these in there. Then you have these assassins, there's 4 assassins, and then there's 6 of these villains, and there are duplicate tokens. You can see some of these are set outside of the bag, and then there's one in the bag. So there's 1 through 6, and then there's 1 through 6 there. And then these also have a flip side. You'll see as these get on the board, this is a way to subdue them. Once you've done damage to them and basically killed them, you subdue them. You don't really kill them, but you knock them out. And then now you can take them back to the headquarters and try to get some money and influence. So you're going to draw these, and then you're going to be able to put these out on the board. Well, for each one that you draw, so in this case, let's say we drew 3, like in a 4-player game, you're going to roll 3 dice here. So you roll these, and then you can decide how to distribute them. So you can see we got here 2, 5, and a 6. So if we zoom in here, we can see there's the 2, there's the 5, and over there's the 6. So we could say, let's say we got 1 of each here. We had an assassin, a bomb, and a villain. So we could say, we'll put the bomb here at the 2, and the assassin at the 6, and then the other one was at a 5, so we'll put the villain there up at the 5. So you're going to decide that. So you can, there's some thought to that for sure. I'm not going to get too much into that. I don't want to bog the video down, but there's some thought to where you put that based on how things are going to be moving around and who's going to be able to get to where and things. And then for the bomb, you're going to take and roll a die again, and then that's going to be the timer of the bomb. So that's not very much time. So that's going to basically tick down every turn, and that's going to sort of dictate how long you have to disarm the bomb. This is the little disarm bomb board. This is the best part of the game by far. I'll talk about that more in a minute. I just want to highlight that. So after seating the board with the different tokens, then players will take actions. And there's a nice player aid online on BoardGameGeek. This is by the designer, printed out. This is very helpful. It's going to be missing a couple of details, of course, but I found it very useful in teaching the game. But the rules themselves are pretty straightforward. There are a fair amount of rules. I mean, the game is pretty straightforward, but there are some interesting interactions and things that can happen. But from what I can see, everything's been covered. I haven't had any interactions. I've had interactions that, you know, I got to go back to the rule book and clarify, but it is there. So basically there's a couple of kind of generic actions that you can do as much as you want for the most part. And then there's what's called justice actions, and those are going to be dealing with some of these hazards, the villains and things. And you can only do 2 justice actions on a turn. Now the way that works is, let's say I do a couple actions, like I move around, do something, and then I do 1 justice action, then I can do some more stuff. That's not a justice action. And then I do my second justice action, then I'm done. The only thing I can do after that second justice action will be to recruit one of these informants here. And to recruit an informant, you basically pay $2 to the bank, and then wherever you're at, you're going to put out the recruit or the informant out into the topmost available spot there. So basically do some stuff, justice action, do some more stuff, justice action, and then possibly do a recruit. Now you can never do the same action, same justice action at least, in the same spot twice. So let's just go through what other actions are. So the first action you can do that is not a justice action is basically move. And so you just kind of move orthogonally, and you can move 2 spaces, and then that's your move for the turn. Now every move after that, you have to spend a fuel. So if I spend a fuel, I can do another move of 2. And again, if your car is up here, you can actually move 3 for one of your moves. So your first move is free, and then any after that is going to cost you a fuel. Now if you see here on these precincts, we have these little thug icons, these skulls. Every time you move through one of these, you have to either take a damage or spend a bullet. And you can also block one of those again with the shield there if you've upgraded your car. So that's a move. That's pretty simple. The other thing you can do is you can actually investigate. And I forgot one thing actually. When you pull out one of these guys here, you're going to take the matching token. Can't believe I forgot this. It's like the main thing in the game. So you take the 4 there. We drew the 4, and then you draw a card off this big old deck here, like 50 cards. And you take this guy and you put him face down and you put the 4. So this is basically the character that's there. You just don't know what it is. Now if you want, you can investigate, and you can spend here your 2 evidence to put one of your little investigation tokens on there. So you get to look at the card. So we'll take a look at this guy here. And then we can see, okay, this is Mona Sterling. She has a health of 2. This is how much money we're going to get when we turn her in. If we fight her and lose, this is the bad thing that's going to happen. So if I investigate that, I know that. So I'm going to mark that with that. So I know that later if I forget, I can go back here and look. But also what I can do is there's another ability on these cards to consider. Now some of these cards here have this little thing. So if you, when you fight them and reveal them, if you have investigated them and you see this little white thing, this ability will trigger. So if I investigated this guy, this little bonus is going to trigger. Nick is worth +4 credits when turned in by the revealing agent. So if I revealed him and I investigated him, I get a little bit of a bonus. Now this, for Megan Farlow, if I have not investigated her and I fight her, then this is going to be bad. If you're positioned in a precinct, you lose 2 stamina. So the investigation is a little bit interesting and dicey there. You really want to go and look because the health of these guys is going to matter quite a bit. So the 1s and 2s health, very doable to defeat. The 3s and 4s, very much almost not doable sometimes until hopefully you've leveled your agent up. So anyway, that second action there to investigate them, that's kind of your second free action. Now we've also got the justice actions, and those are going to change based on the dealing of these here. So these you don't have to play with. Now this is, you have to have at least 3 or 4 players to play with these, and this is sort of where your role, your trader stuff comes in. And so based on which game mode you're playing, you're going to basically play with these or without these. And so that's going to kind of change up the justice action possibilities. So what you're going to do is deal 3 of these to each player. The setup is a little different for 3 and 4 players, and then you'll be able to look at them. So if you have 2 of these androids, let's say I had this configuration here, then I could be an android. I don't necessarily be one, but I could be. These will be face down, and during the game these will get revealed at different times. I'll talk about that now. But so there's some different abilities that are available to you if you're an android, and only when you're a revealed android. So just keep that in mind. Now the first thing you might want to do here is move to where there's a villain and then attack the villain. So whenever you attack stuff, basically what you're going to do is you're going to roll 3 red dice, and you're trying to roll these blast symbols to hit them. Now you can, if you want, spend bullets to roll black dice. So remember here, when you are moving through these areas with thugs, you can also roll bullets or spend life to block the skulls there. So you don't want to spend these too much to keep yourself healthy, because that's going to reduce your ability to get these black dice. So let's say I was trying to attack this guy. I'm going to roll 3 red dice and 2 black dice. Maybe I spent 2 bullets. And then again, if we've upgraded our gun, then we can roll either 1 or 2 green dice on top of there. And again, you're trying to roll the blast symbols there. So if we take a roll here, let's say we've got 1 black die and then 3 red. So we're going to roll these here. Let's see what we got. Well, nothing very good. But let's say we had rolled a blast there and then an X here. So we'll look for the X. So the X's are interesting because they'll actually double a blast. So this will actually count as 2 hits because we can apply that X there. Now if we had another X here, you can't apply that again. You've got to apply it to a separate blast. So rolling a bunch of X's isn't going to do you any good unless you've rolled blasts to go with them. So that would be actually 4 hits there. So if you're fighting an agent, you basically need the number of hits equal to their hit points. If you don't make that, then something bad is going to happen to you. So remove 1 criminal card in your turned in row. So basically if you've turned in a criminal later from the game. So that could be bad. So that's going to happen for anybody. But if you do defeat him, you're going to flip this over, and also the marker on the card over to subdued. And then now, for a second action, you'll be able to go and capture that one. So that's actually 2 separate actions. So if you've used up a first justice action already and then, subdued him, now he's able for somebody else to come and just snag from you. Now what you're trying to do is move this criminal back here and then turn them in. That's an action to do that. When you do that, you get an influence point, so you basically get 1 point, and then you get the number of money on the card. And again, money is important because you'll be going and buying things and also trying to put your informants out. Now the other thing that you can do is you can try to intercept somebody's criminal. So if Black moves in here, he can try to steal that criminal. This is kind of a different way of doing it. So what you're going to do as the attacker is you can spend fuel to roll these green dice here. Now there's 3 green dice, 3 red dice, and 3 black dice, and it's limited. All the components are limited for a reason. So if I had spent 2 fuel as the attacker, I could try to roll these, and then since there's 1 green die less, the defender can spend a fuel to roll this. Now if the attacker had spent 3 fuel to roll all 3 dice, then too bad. The defender doesn't get to roll any dice. What you're trying to roll here are the cars. If you roll more cars than the defender, then you get to steal the criminal. And I should say you can't actually capture multiple criminals and move around with them. So if you were to somehow roll like 2 cars to 0 cars, you could steal both of the criminals. So that's how you deal with the villains. Now you can also go to, there's an assassin over here. You can move over here, and this is interesting because you can't take any justice actions where you have the police squad here. So you couldn't do anything in this case, but if he was somewhere else, you could go and do him. Basically, you do the same attack with the 3 red dice, maybe some black dice or green dice, and then you just try to get 2 hits on the guy. If you do kill the guy, you just put him back in the bag and you get a victory point. If you don't kill him, then you take 2 damage. Now, if you're at a location with a shield, now the assassin would never be at the headquarters, but if you're at another location with a shield, with a heart, then any damage you take from them will be prevented. And you'll kind of notice that different areas here with shields will protect you from damage from bomb blasts and things like that. Now we'll get to bombs in a second. But the other couple things you can do is you can buy stuff. So you can go here and buy car upgrades, you can buy some health at the hospital, you could buy gun upgrades, you could buy bullets, things like that. So you just spend as much money as you have. Money will be in short supply unless you start capturing villains, and then you basically take 1 buy action to buy as much as you want in a spot. The other thing you can do is do like a scout or a search. You basically roll the dice that are on there, and so in this case I'd roll 3 black dice, and so you can see you can get maybe a gun upgrade, a bullet, some money, 2 bullets, some different stuff. Now if you roll a blast, you're going to take a damage. However, if you roll an X, you can put an X to sort of commit the X to block a blast, or you can take the X and then double something. So if I had rolled, $2 and an X, then I could, apply the X to the $2 to get $4. So it's kind of your choice based on the roll. And so you can roll different sets of dice, based on different locations and stuff. Now, if you suspect somebody of being an android, you kind of want to turn them into an android, you can scan them. Now you can scan them if you're in the same location as them or they're in the same spot as one of your informants. You spend 4 evidence, which again are these hourglass or magnifying glass things there, and then they have to reveal one of their little discs there. And you can also attack an android. So if somebody has flipped these up and they reveal that they are an android, you can attack them. It's the same idea there, just like attacking a villain or an assassin. You roll 3 red and a black and greens. In this case though, if there are any greens left over, the defender can, sort of like how you can defend against getting a criminal captured, you can spend fuel to roll these and try to roll cars to block the hits. But again, you're still trying to roll hits. Now if you kill or knock out an android, and androids can fight the agents in the same way. So if you're revealed as an android, you can attack anybody that's not yet revealed as an android, even though they may have 2 of these, but they're just face down, so they're not yet an android, which is interesting. And each game actually has an android limit. So if you're playing with a 4-player game, there's a 2 android limit. So it's basically, in a 3-player game, it's a 1 android limit. So even if there's 2 androids possible, once you hit the limit, then nobody can be an android. So that's kind of interesting. And you may get yourself in a situation where you want to reveal yourself as an android because you're going to attack locations. So, but let's back up a minute. If you kill somebody, then they go here, and then when you die, I'll just say you go back here, your health goes back to here, you go to the hospital, you lose 1 influence point, which is a big bummer. That's the worst part of it. And then if you haven't hit your android limit, you're going to flip up one of these tokens like that. And if you killed an android and you're an agent, you get a point. If you're an android and you kill an agent, then you also get an influence point. Now it's feasible for an android, let's say the yellow player here was an android, and we wanted to attack a location. We're basically trying to roll 2 hits. If you have an informant there, it'll block out one of the hits. It'll kill out the informant. But if you get 2 unblocked hits, you're going to flip this over. This now becomes kind of a worthless location because there's nothing to, well, if this was a worthwhile location, I should say, this would block these out here. So you can see there, now you can't buy anything or roll any dice there. And if you are not an android, you're going to lose health if you're in there, or if you move in there or anything. Androids can move in there okay, but when you destroy a location as an android, you get a point as well. So that's kind of an interesting thing to kind of rush to kill the locations, because once you're an android, you have to give back any villain tokens that you have currently in your control. Any criminals you've already captured, you still get points for those, but you can't capture criminals anymore, so you're kind of going to destroy the different locations there. And let's just get to the bomb. So if there's a bomb on one of these, it will actually go off. So how do you defuse a bomb? Well, let's say we had a bomb here of 5 seconds. Okay, so I've chosen this with 5 seconds. I will say if it's 3 or less, don't attempt it. Maybe at a 3, but if it's 2 or less, don't even try to attempt it. Just try to stay away from the tile where the bomb is, because it's going to explode eventually. So when you're trying to disarm a bomb, you're basically going to roll all 9 of the special dice. So let's just go through a little fake bomb disarming. So you're going to roll these. So that's no good. But what you have to do is you have to place all the blasts, and you have to place all of these X's, which are basically like wire cuts. So you have to do, and then you'll be able to roll these later. So let's just give ourselves an X, just so we have a little bit of something. So you've always got to start here in the upper left, and this first column is sort of free to place in. So if, let's say I just did this. I'll explain why in a second. And, well, this is bad, but I'll just do. So the first column, free. Second, third column, so I'm going to tick these down twice. So 5, 4, 3. This would be at 3 seconds. If you ever get it down to 0, it's going to explode on you right there. So that's like I said. So if you have a lesser number here, it's much harder to disarm. What you're trying to do is get 3 X's in a row, and that's either horizontally, vertically, diagonally, whatever you want to do. So once you do that, you've basically cut the bomb. Now you can stop anytime you want, but if you have any of these spots here, let's say we didn't roll that and we had something like this, and we're like, I want to stop, or we'd run out of time if we go any further, we're going to have to use extra columns, based on how we think we might organize this. Any of these rows here that have an open blast that's not covered by an X, then you have to take and roll these, and basically you're trying to roll to see if the bomb is stable. So you want to roll X's when you do that. You don't want to roll blasts, and basically you keep rolling to see if you have any blasts that aren't canceled by X's, and you just keep rolling until either the bomb succeeds or it explodes. So that's pretty much the gist of that. You can't place any blasts after the X. Some other different rules like that, but it's really straightforward, and it's really cool because it's very kind of hair-raising to try to figure out, okay, do I want to fill up this row here? And so see, if I did that, I'm not using as many rows, but maybe I'm trying to roll that one X, but if I roll an X and a blast, then I've got to do something with that, and doesn't get me 3 in a row, so you're kind of trying to do that. Plus you're maybe like, okay, well, I'll leave one blast and then take my chances with rolling that one die to see if it's destabilized and stuff. This is awesome. That's all I got to tell you about that. It's really fun. A couple other things, the cleanup stuff, you're going to move these villains around. There's sort of a pattern that happens, so you can basically move along the outside of the board here, and then once it gets out to this middle part, it's going to exit and leave the map. If the guy gets dealt here, he's not going to exit, he's going to go all the way around. So you move all the villains. Any spot where there's a villain and an assassin, you'll move the assassins off of there until they're on a spot that doesn't have a villain, and then they're going to move one spot, and they may move another spot to attack an agent there if an agent is in an adjacent spot. So they're going to do 2 damage to you. Any spot that has an assassin or a villain on it that has a bomb is going to tick down, and that's going to tick down again at the end. But before you tick the bomb down, you're going to move this guy up. So he's going to go from 4 to 5. This is the 5, right? No, it's up here. He's going to go there, and then he's going to basically delete everything off of there. So any bombs and villains and stuff, they're going to get wiped off. So you got to kind of plan how everything's going to move around, and that's kind of part of like how you're going to put stuff out at the beginning of the turn and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. And then any bombs that explode deal 4 damage to anybody there, wipe out any criminals or anything, and then 2 damage to anybody adjacent. And that is unless you are in a spot with a shield there. So that's pretty much the game. Mostly going to be turning in criminals for points and money, and sometimes you take some of those easy bombs. So if you had a bomb that's like, it gives you 6 columns basically worth of stuff to work with, that's kind of a quick way to get an influence point. Assassins are pretty easy because you don't have to take them back to headquarters. You try to really manage your health and stuff because, once you die, you lose an influence, which sucks. There's a really cool dynamic with this whole kind of trader mechanic, if you will. You spend a lot of time really managing your resources because you have your car stuff, you know, to try to move around in your upgrades, and you got to get influence points there, but you've got bullets which will help you move through these areas with thugs, but also give you black dice to roll. The evidence, you can go here in the headquarters and spend 6 evidence for a point, or you can use them to, you know, uncover criminals, and there's all kind of multiple uses for all these different things here. So let's go into the review. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the overview. I'm really a big fan of this game. I gotta tell you, it's really fun, really awesome. In a lot of ways, it's kind of like what a Study in Emerald, I kind of wanted that to be, where you have sort of a lot of crazy dynamics that can happen with the game without the game itself being crazy and really kind of open to abuse, which I felt Study in Emerald was quite open to abuse. This one, though, really is going to keep you on your toes, because the first couple of times I played, I was like, man, I got 4 points that game. Like, nothing, I got no points. And the deck of villain cards is really going to kind of dictate the game. Now, if the particular game where we had a really low score was, it was like 4s and 3s. And so my one kind of complaint about the game is that deck. And so if you could kind of seed it some way or something. But on the other hand, it kind of is interesting because it just gives you another variety, a way to play. And because there's a lot of variety in sort of the negative effects on some of those villain cards, you can really kind of play those in a mean way. Like, for example, there's one that, like, if you fail, all the bombs go off. Well, I may go and just fail on that villain because a lot of you guys are standing around bombs and I want them to go off. So, you know, that's kind of interesting. So there's a lot of weird little things you can do with those. But I could see getting dealt, like, it's possible you would get like all villains that are all 4 health, which is like impossible to defeat. Because even with, you know, 3 red dice, 3 black dice, and 2 green dice, you could whiff, you know, massive, be not likely, but you could whiff pretty massively on an attack, and you're like, geez, you know, I roll all these dice and I get 1 hit, you know, and I'm supposed to get 4 on this guy. So there's that part of it. So you got to know that going into the game. Now, other than that, the rest of the game is butter. And that doesn't really bother me because this is kind of how it goes. The one thing I didn't mention was when you move the police squad guy around at the end of the round, if anybody's on his tile or adjacent, they have to flip over one of their little identity tokens. So if you are one of the agents or the androids, you can kind of try to position yourself without probably being too revealing about it. And then, oh, boom, look at I'm an android, so I'm going to start blowing stuff up early or something. So that's kind of cool too. And I will say, I get back to that, I think that is my favorite way to play the game for sure, is with that. Now with 2 players you can't play with that, and I don't think it would really work. But I still like the game without it. It's just like kind of like once you play with it, it's like, you know, I don't want to play without it. It really makes the game fun. It gives you some extra different things to do. You can go attack other players directly, you know, and try to knock them out. Like, oh, you're going to move through this area with thugs, and, you know, maybe get hit by an assassin, so I'm going to pounce on you and take you out. And it really hurts to lose that influence point that influence point, because it's a very tight game. Oh, the other thing, I knew I forgot something. There are little faction symbols, sorry about this, on the different villains. So you kind of want to try to collect a set of those, so whatever faction you have the most of, you get like a lot more bonus points. I haven't seen anybody get more than a couple of points from that, because it is pretty difficult to you know, get like 4 or 5 of the same. It's difficult to get 4 or 5 villains some games. And so anyway, there's that part of it. I'm sorry I forgot about that part. But yeah, it's really cool. Like I said, the bomb disarming thing, man, I just play that all day long and just play little games with myself playing, oh, let's disarm a level 4 bomb and try to roll the dice. It's just because it's really intense. Because you kind of get down to where you just need that one extra wire cut, and just to, you know, zap it in there, and then you got your free, your easy influence point. So that's neat. I like the assassins. You can go knock them out. The way that you get money, though, is killing those villains. So again, that's kind of why that villain stuff is really going to influence the game, because the villains are difficult to kill. There's not going to be a lot of money in the game, so you won't be able to buy your upgrades as easy. You won't be able to put out informants as easy, because that's a good way to score points. So that really is going to kind of dictate the game, just how those are dealt out. But yeah, it's really cool. I like how all the dice have multiple uses. You know, the fuel has multiple uses for kind of stealing criminals versus moving around the board really quickly, maybe to attack other people or go grab an easy bomb. And the bullets are really important because you want to roll those extra dice, because it's not, if you roll 3 red dice, I mean, it's easy to just get no hits, even on a 1 or 2 hit villain. So you want to keep some bullets you know, to get the black dice, but you want to keep some bullets to not take a bunch of damage when you move through areas with thugs. So you have that going for you. So yeah, this is kind of a lot going on. The game plays pretty quick. I mean, the box says like 90 minutes, but after I played it, it's like you can easily get this done in an hour. People just, it lends itself to just fun, quick plays, and just like, oh, haha, like, you know, you're an android and I stole your stuff, or, you know, I exploded this bomb on purpose on you so you died, and, you know, all this stuff like that. So it's pretty cool, really thematic and all that stuff, and just kind of this backwards, futuristic, dystopian world where everybody's just stabbing everybody in the back. And like I said, you know, it's kind of what I wanted out of Study in Emerald. But this is actually gameplay that I can progress with and not have it break down, you know, every third game that I play of it. So anyway, really would recommend it. Some people are like, if you're like a die-hard Euro guy, you'll probably hate this game. I know for a fact, because I played with somebody that was, and they're like, this game is stupid. And I totally disagree, but, you know, that's not his style of game. But, you know, I think if you like a good time game, you know, like just kind of a silly game with an interesting graphics and theme and stuff like that, and like the bombs are exciting, and see if you're gonna attack the villain and win is exciting and stuff like that. So anyway, so that is Rogue Agent. Definitely a unique game. Nice artwork, nice components, and everything like that. So really fun, and also it's one of those games that walks that razor wire. You're kind of like, you know, is the game going to fall apart? Is it not? And I haven't felt it fall apart. So, but it feels like it's about to, and I like that. I like that kind of that disconcerting part of it, which I liked in Study in Emerald because it had that same kind of thing. But to me, this one kind of just, you know, it stays on the wire, it doesn't fall off. Okay, Rogue Agent. Thanks.